Steve walked onto the stage with his trademark grin, applause greeting him like an old friend. But something in his step was different, lower, heavier. His fingers curled tighter around the cue cards than usual. Behind him, the studio lights blazed, but they couldn't warm what was coming. The crowd quieted as Ibrahim Traore stepped forward. Hands clasped calmly in front of him, a small black badge pinned to his chest. Unheard, no entourage, no script, just presence. Steve smiled, trying to match the energy, but his eyes flickered, confused, perhaps cautious. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is a revolutionary voice. A leader, Steve began, voice smooth. Ibrahim cut in, softly but clearly. This chair has hosted jokes, confessions, fame, but never an apology. The crowd stilled. Steve blinked. Sorry. I was told this would be a conversation, Ibrahim said, looking not at Steve, but into the audience. But that's only possible if someone listens. A nervous chuckle escaped Steve's lips. Well, I'm all ears, brother. You're not, Ibrahim replied, without anger. You've heard pain before. You laughed, moved on. That's not the same. Pause. The air tightened. Steve shifted. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what was really happening. That's the problem, Ibrahim said. Not knowing became your brand. But ignorance isn't harmless when it has a microphone. The audience no longer breathed. The camera struggled to choose between the host's silent guilt and the guest's stillness. Steve opened his mouth, closed it. Narration entered, then not from a voice, but from the way Steve stared at the floor. What started as an interview was about to become an indictment broadcast live to millions. Steve's fingers tapped, the armrest slow, uncertain. Ibrahim sat unmoved beside him, a single folded sheet in his lap. This was written in 2004, he said quietly, holding it up. A boy from Burkina Faso, my cousin. His name was Issa. The camera lingered on Ibrahim's face. No tears. Just wait. Steve leaned in, forced casual. He wrote to this show. Ibrahim nodded. A letter, full of hope, wanting to speak. To show your audience Africa beyond the headlines? His voice trembled slightly. It was ignored. The crowd shifted. The air began to thicken. I want to read it now, Ibrahim said, already. Unfolding the page. Dear Mr. Harvey, he began, voice steady. I watch your show through a grainy signal, but your laughter travels even here. I want to tell stories, too, real ones, of my village. My brother's hands after work, my mother's quiet anger when rice runs out. Steve looked down. A producer off stage turned pale. I think stories can save us, Ibrahim read. Even if no one listens, I want to try. Silence. Steve cleared his throat. I don't remember this. I'm sure you don't, Ibrahim replied, but someone did. He reached into his jacket, held up a printed staff email visible to the audience. Cute wants to be Spielberg from the jungle. The crowd gasped. Narration swelled, but only inside Steve's head now. Memories of staff jokes, forwarded clips, interns deleting emails. It wasn't personal then. It was content. He died that same year, Ibrahim said, detained at a protest. Beaten, gone. Steve looked up, voice cracking. I didn't know. You didn't ask? A flashback flickered across the screen, a producer, smirking. We don't do politics, especially African ones. Let the kid make a YouTube channel or something. Narration slipped in like a shadow, but Issa never made anything. That same month, he was detained during a peaceful protest. He died behind walls that knew only screams. A former intern's voice cut through. There was a memo, avoid third world sob stories. Said they don't test well. On the screen behind them, live tweets flashed. Hashtag Steve heard him. Hashtag Africasn't entertainment. Audience sat still. No applause, just breath. Steve tried to speak, failed. One man's silence, Ibrahim said, became a continent's echo. Steve's hand hovered over the cue card. Blank. The prompter had gone black minutes ago, but no one moved to fix it. The control room tried to cut to commercial. Steve shook his head, almost imperceptibly. No jokes left, no script. Just the moment. I don't remember the letter, Steve said quietly. God help me, I don't, but that don't make me innocent. Ibrahim's eyes stayed fixed on him. Privilege forgets, he replied, but pain remembers in detail. The crowd was still, not in awe, in awareness. Their gaze had shifted, not toward Steve the entertainer, but Steve the man. Unraveling. I was just doing my job, Steve murmured, more to himself. Some of us don't get that choice, Ibrahim said. Our lives are the job, the pain is unpaid labor. For your laughs, your ratings. Steve's jaw clenched, but there was no defense. Only breath. Ibrahim reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. Pressed play. A voice, youthful, warm, filled the room. Hello, Mr. Harvey. My name is Issa. I'm from Burkina Faso. I don't have a camera, but I imagine pictures in my head. If someone listens, maybe they'll believe in us. If not, I'll still keep filming in my mind. A few gasps. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Steve bowed his head. Shoulders trembled. Not from guilt, from something heavier. Something final. The laugh lines around his eyes seemed to collapse inward. He whispered, We failed him. Ibrahim said nothing. The silence stretched. The man who once filled silence with punchlines now let it speak louder than any word he knew. Steve didn't ask to go to break. He didn't wipe his tears. He didn't look up. This wasn't a show anymore. It was history, raw, undeniable, and finally televised. The gallery was quiet. Not museum quiet, but the kind of silence that asked people to listen, not look. Steve moved slowly through the exhibit, hands in pockets, shoulders lowered, pausing when he reached the centerpiece. Issa's letter, framed in 10 languages. Kids stood beside their parents, reading in whispers. No cameras, no laughter, just the sound of realization settling. He remembered the hate first in boxes filled with words too sharp to repeat. But in the middle of it, one email stayed. Thank you for letting us heard out loud. From a girl in Lagos 14. He read it twice. I failed him. A staffer had whispered weeks ago before sliding her resignation across the desk. I saw the letter. I could have said something. Steve hadn't stopped her. Ibrahim never raised his voice, even when he handed Issa's mother the plaque. Old prompter glass engraved with Issa's final words. Her fingers trembled as she held it. He still speaks, she'd said. Now Steve stood before teens in a public school. His voice cracked but didn't rise. I spent decades asking people to open up, he began. But when a child opened his heart to me, I laughed over it. I am sorry. Not for the past, but for staying blind when I could see. He didn't expect applause. He didn't get any. They say time heals. But time only watches. It's truth that burns. And sometimes, truth, spoken softly, can remake the world. Somewhere in Burkina Faso, a boy picked up a camera for the first time in a school renamed Issa Studios for the unheard. Ibrahim leaned beside him, adjusting the lens gently. And Steve. He stood still. No script, no noise. He cried, not out of guilt but because silence had finally found its voice.